arcaded veranda. These verandas are characteristic of the Queen Anne style. Awkward, but we can do it. Okay, fine. All right, come on, let's go, baby. Okay. The projecting crossed gables are another characteristic of this style. The shingled attic gables are a third characteristic. Now, together with the paired decorative brackets, one of which can be seen, let me see here. Here, paired brackets, that's another characteristic of the Queen Anne style. You'll notice the walls, that's sheathed in narrow clapboarding, and you have vertical white corner boards. But notice the subtle decoration. Look at the diamond design on either side of the third floor. We'll give you a close-up of that later, but just to show you where that is. Look also at the scallop designs over the two narrow windows down on the second floor here. Okay. And the walls are punctuated with classical and Renaissance detailing, such again as in this attic window where you have an arched window. Classic arch right there. Okay. And you have a Palladian window on the north-facing gable, which unfortunately is hidden by trees and leaves. I wanted to cut down the trees, but they wouldn't let me do it. But I did my best here. You can barely discern it because of all the greenery. A Palladian window is one that's made up of two small windows on either side of a large window, and a large window normally has an arch over it. That's a Palladian window. Okay, it's this type of window is named after a famous Italian architect, Palladio, and who worked during the 1600s. So what we see here are just a little bit. You've got a narrow window here, and in this next view, here you get a look here, a partial look at least, of the large middle window with this arch over it. That's a Palladian window. Okay, but that's classic style. The hip roof is pierced by tall, narrow chimneys. And here we see the very simple, but I think elegant front entrance, with its decorated posts, which is another characteristic of Queen Anne. So if you should see a home with a wide veranda around it and decorated posts, that's another clue that that's a Queen Anne that you're looking at. And look at the decorated balustrades on the porch. And this curvilinear window is also typical of Queen Anne, here and here. Okay, that's an important feature of the style. This charming pergola in back is not a characteristic of the style, I'm sorry. But it's still nice, it's charming, it's lovely. But no, it's not. But look what they did. Now, a lot of thought went into this. That's true, this is not part of Queen Anne, but look what they have supporting it. Decorative posts. That is definitely Queen Anne. So the people who live here really use a lot of imagination and thoughtfulness in doing what they did. And while it's not part of the Queen Anne style, it kind of fits very comfortably in it. I think they did a magnificent job here. This delightful garage, I'm sure at one time it had to be a barn. If it looks like it had to be a barn, it just had to. Okay. Okay. Now one last glance at a magnificent residence. Oh, I should have asked you to. That's what they do at all the shows. Ask you to silence your cell phone. I didn't think about that. Sorry about that. Okay. Mr. Inglis was a businessman who founded a refrigerator boxcar company. The architect he commissioned was Frank Lloyd Wright. His dates are 1867 to 1959. Frank went on to become America's most prolific and one of its most famous architects. In fact, Frank even thought so himself. He was once asked on a television interview, he said, well, who do you think is the greatest architect who ever lived? He said, well, I am. Remember that story? And anyway, later on after the show, a friend took him aside and said, Frank, you were really being very modest when I made the question. He said, well, he asked me to tell him the truth. Okay. Wright designed more, I understand that Wright designed more than 1,000 structures during his 7-decade career. And his studio became the birthplace and the prime training ground for Prairie School architects who followed him. In giving Wright the commission, however, there were certain stipulations that Mr. Inglis had. First, every room had to have windows on 3 sides to maximize light and ventilation. The result was what we call a balanced, cuneiform plan. All the word cuneiform means is cross-like. That's all it means. A balanced, cuneiform plan. All the rooms radiated from a central mass, and of course, if you know Prairie School, that mass was a fireplace, the kindle nook. Okay, so that was the center. The plan. Now, this plan that you see here is one of 4 subtypes that make up the Prairie School style. However, every subtype shares the same characteristics: low proportions, grouped windows, and deep eaves. That carries across all Prairie School styles. The cantilevered balconies you see here, and there's one on the other side, and the roof overhangs visually extend a horizontal line beyond the central core. Horizontality is another characteristic of the Prairie School style architecture. That's emphasized with these bands of windows. Here. Also by this chimney, characteristic Prairie School style chimney, low, wide, and horizontal. And also by these horizontal green trim against the white background. So that all emphasizes horizontality. A closer look at the balconies. One on each side. Whoops. Which perfectly balances the other one. Probably off the balconies. Probably off the bedrooms. All these shots, by the way, had to be taken from the sidewalk because I was not allowed to come inside, so luckily they have these, I don't call them telephoto lenses, so I was able to get some of these, but these all were taken from the street. Another characteristic of Prairie School style is this urn of flowers. The urns are usually round in shape, but in this case, flat and rectangular. The urn is perfectly balanced by a twin on the other side. A hallmark of the Prairie School style were informal gardens or plantings with plants that were indigenous to the prairie. That's an important characteristic of this style. Now let's take a look at the beautiful art glass on the second floor, which are of Wright design. Wright believed that clean, straight lines were more fitting for modern houses than undulating Art Nouveau designs that were then in vogue. Art Nouveau as a design was in vogue until the beginning of World War I. So that was in vogue, but he believed that does not fit modern housing. The intricate patterned windows had another purpose aside from beauty. They frequently eliminated the need for curtains. Okay. Now, when a view was important, the center of the window was left clear. So it's not just a pretty window, it's a functional window also. Okay. It's important to note that. The chimney, again, typical Wright chimney, rather than tall and narrow, low and wide. And again, contributes to their horizontality. Okay, but I'm repeating myself. One final look. We can appreciate what Wright achieved with this residence. the balconies, the urns, the thrust-out porch, which acts as a visual fulcrum. Everything is in balance. Again, though, I do want to point out that there are 4 versions of Prairie School style, and this is only one version. Do not expect to see this kind of balance in all of Wright's work. That simply will not happen. Okay.
Al,
Yes, sir.
Could I add before we
Go on.
go on, that if you have a desire to have a new home, that house is on the market now.
Really?
And it's one of Frank Lloyd Wright's gems.
Yes,
You know,
wonderful. Oh, I can hardly wait.
Has somebody got a contract? Well, you need to get your bid in real fast.
The next home we're going to visit was by another architect, Salon S. Beeman. His dates are 1887, 1952. He was the son of a more famous architect. He's a junior. His father designed the town of Pullman in southern suburb of Chicago. Also, all the buildings for the Columbian Exhibition of 1894. So he had a very famous dad. The Normandy style emanates from the half-timbered farmhouses on the coast of Normandy, France, which are characterized by steeply pitched hip roofs, arched doorways, imposing coned roofed towers. The building materials can be either brick, stone, or stucco. In this case, all 3 are used. The French eclectic / Norman style of architecture is a version of Romanesque architecture. One characteristic of Romanesque architecture, of course, are rounded arches. The Gothics come to a point. Romanesque, okay. It was developed by the Normans during the 11th and 12th centuries. The Romanesque influence can be seen in the rounded arches over the door and over some of the windows. In this style, the tower is located near the center of the structure and serves as the entrance to the home. Now, it's no accident that homes of this style resemble miniature castles, because in Europe, some of them were. Side view reveals a steep roof, another rounded doorway there, side door, arch doorway, I should say, and these dormers, which come from the rural French colonial style. This residence is really an eclectic style. Eclectic means it combines 2 or more architectural styles. That's all it means. Therefore, what you see is not a pure style. Okay? After the Civil War, the American Civil War, architects concluded that if no one style of architecture suited their purposes, they could combine various styles to achieve what they wanted to achieve, which was a revolutionary idea. Hence, eclectic styles were born. Another look. The style also invokes interest by varying the size of windows. That'll be a common theme in this talk. These, of course, being very narrow. The half-timbering also adds interest by not just being horizontal and vertical, as they more commonly are. Large chimneys come with this style. And here we see the rounded arch over the side doorway. And by the way, we also see here the 3 types of material used: the stone, the brick, and above, the stucco. Isn't that arch gorgeous? Just stunning. Beautiful decoration of the arch. I think that adds a bit of, I was going to say whimsy, but I'm not sure that's right. But it certainly adds beauty. As does the door screen. Unfortunately, I couldn't get any closer because that would have been invading someone's private property. But this door screen is another one here. I can't do it justice, but it's also stunningly beautiful.
Is that art? Is that mosaic or is that painted?
Again, please.
The design over the arch, is that mosaic or is that painted?
Good question. Who asked?
It looks a little bit mosaic, but it could be painted.
You know what? I don't know.
It could also be carved wood.
Oh, carved too, yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
I think it's terracotta.
I don't know either. Okay, okay.
What street is it on?
What street is it on?
Pardon?
What street?
I did tell you, I can look it up in my notes again, I just don't remember. Okay, let's go. Next to the door is this interesting classical quadrifoil designed window. Very classic looking. Finally, this charming weather vane. This home had to have that weather vane. Okay? The knight on his horse, the castle in the background. It completes the picture perfectly. One last look at this picturesque residence. So when your dog poops on your lawn, take a second look. Next, we're going to look at something entirely different from the previous home. David Cunningham Thatcher is River Forest's oldest settler. He came to the area in 1854 and bought 640 acres. In 1858, he built this restrained Italianate style house. If you were here for the previous presentation, we did emphasize the Italianate houses because they were very popular in River Forest, throughout the United States actually. But anyway, this is what's called restrained Italianate. We'll talk about why in a moment. There are many subtypes of the Italianate style, but they all tend to have some common characteristics. Low-pitched roofs, wide overhanging eaves, with decorative brackets underneath. Here you can see some, and they're always in pairs in Italianate, always in pairs. And there's paired there too, right? Okay. Tall, narrow windows with window hoods. These are called window hoods. They're in here. And normally they're 2 or 3 stories high. In fact, I don't ever remember seeing a 1-story Italianate, but okay. This style came to the United States in the 1830s and reached the height of popularity from the 1850s to the 1880s. Now, this particular structure is built on the L-shaped plan. The front projecting wing is balanced by a simple open porch. Right here. Okay. Paired brackets, which you see more clearly now, support the wide eaves in the typically Italianate style or fashion. Again, paired In 1909, he left to form his own practice. In 1912, he formed a partnership with Louise Günzel. I think that's the way one pronounces his name. Drummond showed a preference for clean, uncluttered facades with symmetrical window placement and crisp, angular forms. This structure illustrates... You're going crazy on me again. I wonder if this has been timed. Okay, we'll go one more time. This structure illustrates Drummond's concern for composition and symmetry, also relating the structure to the site, because they're all residences around it, of course. Here we see 2 of the 4 large corner piers, which help balance the structure. The cantilevered slab roof creates a powerful horizontal statement. Can't imagine where he got that from. The various size windows add a play. Uh-oh, I think we got this machine mistimed. Oh dear. The various sized and shaped windows play a key role in adding interest to the structure. The 5 large wood mullion clerestory windows at the top here, and the 3 lower windows provide lots of natural light for the interior. I once gave a presentation at the old River Forest Women's Club, so on one occasion I did in fact get inside. Plenty of light. It was really quite wonderful, magical. Okay. These art glass windows add interest, as well as beauty to the structure. Again, going along with right, vertical and horizontal lines, none of that undulating sissy stuff. So do these tall... next time we'll have to check the timing on this machine. It's starting to kick in. So do these tall slit glass windows located in each pier. Let's take a close look at one. Okay, here's a close-up of it. Quite lovely. Here's the lattice-covered porte cochere, which houses the entrance. The entrance is to the right, immediately to the right there, somewhat hidden. Beautiful landscape backyard. Follows the Prairie School tradition of marrying nature and architecture, which came from the previous art crafts movement, which Wright was very much familiar with. So it's not totally just his idea. Okay, here's a final peek at it's the machine. Final peek at a Drummond masterpiece.
Al,
Yes, ma'am.
are these buildings all on the historic registry?
Yes.
Do they have to stay the way they are?
Well, let's talk about that in Q&A.
Okay.
There's a lot of misinformation about stay as they are.
Okay.
But let's talk about that later. But it's a good
Okay.
question. Okay. Frederick H. Meyer was first listed as a licensed architect in 1915. Cook in 1916. The last year they appeared to be practicing that I could find was 1938, 1939. So they had a long partnership, to say the least. This is the exotic Spanish Renaissance house, which typifies the revival of Romantic styles in the 1920s. After the war, and after all the sacrifice of the war, people wanted to play again. They didn't want that practical Prairie School style stuff. They want something that was fun. So by God, the architects gave them fun. So here we have the Spanish Renaissance house. The entryway, decorated with an arch, obviously, mimics the Moorish styles, which I have seen at Alhambra in Granada, Spain. Note the chevrons carved into the columns on either side of the door, and the decorated arch over the doorway.
Excuse me, what are chevrons?
There's a close-up.
Oh, okay.
Here, let's go back one more time. Well, let's go back one more time. Right here. These are chevrons. Right here, on either side the doorway.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Like what soldiers have on their arms. Those are chevrons. Okay? All right, good. Bottle glass windows secure privacy as well as interest. Note the spiral carvings in the pillars. Note also the rough stucco work on the walls. This is the first floor, which I think adds interest to the structure. Closer view. As part of a great mass, the rough stucco kind of blends in. You know, when I put my telephoto lens on this, it kind of accentuated. If you were walking by, it wouldn't be this stark. I just wanted to show you some differences between the first and second floor. Here's another decorated window, which provides both, I think, beauty and privacy. Another look, peek. The second floor with a balcony. By the way, this balcony was not original to the structure. This balcony was added in 1950. I don't think it takes away from the structure at all, but it was not part of the original. The clay-tiled roof contributes to the Spanish Mediterranean style. I particularly found this owl-like decoration. Where was it? Let's see. Let's see. Do we have it here? No. Well, why can't I see it in this? Let me have a look here. Come on back. Let's go back. Nope. Let's go. Well, I guess we're not going to show you it. Okay, fine. We'll move on. Okay. You'll notice the stucco work on the second floor is smooth. The contrast between the stucco work on the two floors, I think, adds interest to the building. And here we can look at it. Here you can see the contrast. The rough stuccoed first floor, the smoother second floor. Close-up of the entryway with Moorish-styled hanging urn here and the Corinthian capped columns. The appropriate stucco wall around the backyard with its terracotta caps complete the effect. The wrought iron inset in the wall contributes to a Spanish motif. Another look. And the final peek. Robert C. Spencer Jr., 1864-1953, was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He studied at the University of Wisconsin and matriculated to MIT. He graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering in 1886. He was employed by the Chicago office of Shepley, Rutan, and Coolidge, who were the designers of two buildings we are all familiar with. The Chicago Public Library, which is now the Cultural Center on Michigan Avenue, and also the Art Institute of Chicago. Okay. Now, Spencer did the mosaic designs for both structures. Spencer was a close friend of Wright, but he worked out his own version of the 20th century modern style. He was inspired by Louis Sullivan and by contemporary English architects who were translating medieval architecture into more modern architecture and trying to blend the two. Spencer developed a conservative, formal version of the Prairie style with a blend of simple masses, rectangular details, and English medieval half-timbering, which you see on the second floor. Here we see the deep overhangs of the roof, the horizontal strings of windows, stonework, and the siding on the second floor. The horizontal projection of the living room and the crossed roof gables are all Prairie School characteristics, as well as the large horizontal chimney. Another look. And one last peek at a Spencer and Powers architectural gem. In 1857, Herman Yalding came west with his parents from Lowell, Massachusetts. After discharge from the Union Army in 1864, he started with the American Express Company and remained with them until his death in 1922. The Yalding Cottage is an example of what's called the picturesque Gothic style. And it certainly is that, picturesque. A lot of fun. American builders were affected by the Romanticism of the late Victorian era. Now, Queen Victoria ruled, it was either 1832 or 1835, I keep on forgetting, until 1901. What?
1837.
Thank you for the correction. 1837, she died in January of 1901. You never know I taught history, but anyway. Okay. They translated stone ecclesiastical buildings into domestic structures. This is an example of Grant Wood's, the artist, Grant Wood's American Gothic style, which resulted in merging timber framing with simpler forms. Noteworthy are the paired pointed windows with moldings, parallel to the steep roof. See how that all goes together? And look at the diamond shape of that created here by these double windows, which is copied by the diamond shape up here. Okay. The porch, with its fanciful brackets and fretwork, is decorated what's called the East Lake style, which is part of Queen Anne style of architecture. Characteristic of the East Lake style are geometric ornamentation, as shown in these porch spindles here, and here, and here. Okay. And they were designed in a geometric way in order to be affordable and also to be easy to clean. That was their purpose, very functional. The polygonal bay to the south is also typical of this style, right here. The garage carries the motif. Okay. A final view of an American masterpiece. I imagine it'd be fun to live in that house. Just fun. It just brings, just looking at it brings a smile to one's face. Okay. We're going to finish up our presentation with not an architect or not an owner, but rather with two builders. Lambertus and Hilbrand Burma were carpenters who immigrated from Holland sometime around 1906. They formed the Burma Brothers Construction Company around 1917, and the Burmas were very active in River Forest. Okay. They built practically the entire blocks of 800 to 900 Bonnie Bray, Clinton, as well as the 1,200 blocks of William, Monroe, and Jackson. Lathrop and Park Avenues also have many Burma-built homes. So they were active in our community. The Burma architects, or the architects they hired, ingeniously adapted plans to all styles of architecture, of which you're going to see two. And I think that's the genius of the brothers. Not only superior workmanship, superior craftsmanship, but they could take any style and make it into a quality building. It was amazing. I just find it amazing. This is one of their Spanish/California style homes with rounded arches and ironwork at the entryway. The rounded Romanesque window with fanlight at the top. The large fireplace chimney, and I particularly enjoyed the chimney pots, which we'll get a better look at. And by the way, not tonight obviously, although there's some, but this structure also has some charming chimney pots. Look up once and you'll see them. They're really quite lovely. Now, the various sized and shaped windows, of course, add interest to the structure. There they are. Aren't they lovely? Also, I want you to note the chimney-shaped, the diamond-shaped chimney decorations. The Burmas certainly had a feel for material that he used in their structure. Rather unusual downspout. Looks like it's been twisted. And there it is from roof to ground. Also note the two Spanish-style porches on the first and second floor. And the long shape of the windows, rectangular shape, match the long, narrow shape of the doorway. It all goes together. Okay, a final view of a Burma masterpiece. To show off their versatility, I decided to feature another Burma-built house of an entirely different architectural style. Entirely different. In this case, I'm going to call it a chalet. This half-timbered structure, I feel, would be very comfortable in the Swiss Alps. Particularly note the rough stonework on the chimney, and as I'll show you later, on the first floor exterior. I think this rough brickwork adds an air of authenticity to the structure. And there's the facade, the front facade of the house, again. Close up. Very simple, multi-paned windows, I think add to the home's rustic appearance. A view of the rear. I guess it's a three-car garage, yeah. Okay, lovely. It's evident that the Burma brothers excelled in building a variety of architectural styles, and maybe in future programs I can highlight more of their buildings. And a final view of this picturesque home. I'm going to finish up. One more program, let's be nice. Finally, the estate you're about to see was one of approximately 297 that the Historic Preservation Commission had identified as significant properties in River Forest. This, of course, is the Paul Victor, who was the original owner. And, of course, Franklin Mars, who bought it later, but he's also very famous in his own right. It was a 7,000 square foot mansion, one of the most lavish in River Forest. It had 7 bedrooms, 3 baths, a large fireplace, a grand mahogany staircase that went to the 2nd floor, and a plaster crown molding. Had many exterior Prairie School characteristics, which you all know. I'm not going to repeat all that. Various size windows add to its interest. Of course, we know that. We know about that. The residence was the 4th in what was called the Northwoods area of River Forest. It was commissioned by the founder and the treasurer of the Victor Gasket Company. In the late 1920s, the home was sold to Franklin Mars. I guess they still have a factory here, don't they?
Yes, they do.
It's still there. Mars, of course, was the founder of the famous Mars Candy Company. He was known nationally as the Candy King. Among his famous products were the Milky Way and the 3 Musketeers. And I know we all enjoyed those as kids. There was a huge garden set on more than an acre of land. Don't do that to me. A sunken garden and a lily pond that had been converted to an ice rink. As I said, it stood on more than an acre of land. I speak in past tense because in September of 2015, this magnificent structure was demolished and the property was divided into 2 lots and developed. Some developer made a ton of money. The awful truth is, there is no reason why other of River Forest historical structures can't suffer the same fate. No reason at all. The only thing that can prevent this from happening again is public opinion. If River Forest citizens care enough, they will act. If they act, the culture of River Forest will be preserved. If they don't act, they'll be just like some other suburbs in the West that lost all their historic homes. It's all up to you, really, what you do or don't do. Thank you very much.